You know that constant, low-level struggle we seem to have with our own thoughts and feelings? Well, what if I told you there's a 2,000-year-old diagnosis for that very modern problem? We're going to dive into an ancient text that gives a totally radical and honestly super practical guide to understanding ourselves.
We're looking at something called the Samyukta Āgama. It's one of the oldest collections of the Buddhist teachings. But don't think of it as just some dusty old document. It's more like a user manual for the human mind, and it lays out a way of looking at our own experience that is just as mind-blowing today as it was 2,000 years ago. I mean, you know that feeling, right? The stress, the anxiety, that feeling of being constantly pushed around by events, by our own emotions, even by our own thoughts. It's exhausting. Well, according to this text, that whole struggle comes from one basic misunderstanding. We're trying to cling to a fixed, solid me in a world that is just constantly changing. So, to really get to the bottom of this, the Buddha did something that was just brilliant. He was like a master mechanic for the mind. Instead of just talking about some vague concept of a self, he decided to take it apart piece by piece, just to see what it's actually made of. And these pieces, he called them the 5 aggregates, or wu shou yin in the original text. You can think of these as the 5 fundamental building blocks that come together to create every single moment of your life as you experience it. Getting a handle on these is absolutely the first step. So first up, we've got form. This one's pretty straightforward. It's all the physical stuff. It's your body, the chair you're in, the device you're watching this on, the sounds coming into your ears, the whole physical world.
Next up is feeling. Now this is a little more specific than what we usually mean by emotion. This is the raw, immediate gut reaction to anything. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or just kinda neutral? Before you even have a thought about it, this feeling tone is already there.
So, right after that raw feeling happens, perception kicks in. This is the part of your mind that starts to make sense of the data. It's the bit that slaps a label on everything. It goes, oh, that's a cup of coffee. That's an annoying car alarm. I like that shade of blue. It turns raw sensation into concepts we can recognize.
Okay, now this next one. Mental formations. This is a big one. This is the really active, buzzing part of your mind. We're talking about all your thoughts, your plans, your ingrained habits, your opinions, your urges, all those reactions that bubble up. It's the part that wants to do something about what's happening.
And finally, we have consciousness. Think of this as the screen that the whole movie of your life is projected onto. It's the basic awareness that knows all the other stuff is happening. The forms, the feelings, the perceptions, the thoughts. It doesn't judge or react. It just knows.
Okay, so we've got the 5 parts on the table. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. We've taken the engine apart. Now comes the really game-changing part, the diagnosis. After looking at all these pieces, what's the conclusion? It all boils down to this single, incredibly powerful line from the 9th Sutra. It's like a logical formula, a 3-step argument that just unlocks everything. Let's really break this down.
So here's how the logic flows, and it's pretty hard to argue with. Step 1, just look at those 5 parts of your experience. Your body, your feelings, your thoughts. Are any of them permanent? Of course not. They're all constantly changing moment to moment. That's impermanence. Okay, step 2. What happens when we try to build our lasting, stable happiness on things that are always changing? We get stressed, we get disappointed, we suffer, right? That's suffering. So step 3. If every single part of your experience is always changing, and if clinging to any of it leads to stress, then it logically follows that none of these parts can be a permanent, solid, unchanging self. That is the core insight of not self. It's a diagnosis based on just looking closely.
All right, so if the diagnosis is that we're making ourselves miserable by clinging to these constantly changing parts as if they're a permanent me, then what's the prescription? What's the way out? Well, the text is crystal clear that we have a choice between 2 very different paths. And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's like a choose-your-own adventure for your mind. On one side, you've got ignorance. That's our default setting, right? We just automatically assume I am my thoughts or I am my feelings. And the text says, this path leads directly to fear and ultimately you cannot end suffering. But then there's the other path, wisdom. This is when you learn to see those 5 aggregates clearly for what they are. Just impersonal flowing processes. And the result? The text says desire just fades, and what you get is the liberation of the mind.
Now, I know this can all sound a little bit philosophical or abstract, but the practical, real-world application of this insight is, well, it's huge. It can change your entire relationship with your own life, from one moment to the next.
So what does this actually mean for you, sitting there right now? It means we need a new metaphor for ourselves. Forget thinking of yourself as a solid, fixed statue. It's way more accurate to think of yourself as a river. A river has a shape, you can point to it and say that's the river, but it's made of completely new water in every single moment. The point is, you aren't a noun, you're a verb. You are a happening, an ongoing event. Every single moment is a fresh combination of forms, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and awareness flowing together, creating this experience we call you.
And this is so important to get right. This is not about nihilism. It's not about saying, I don't exist. Of course you exist. You're having an experience right now. The idea isn't to deny your experience, but to completely change your relationship to it.
And that's really the heart of it all. The freedom that these ancient texts are talking about comes from finally letting go of the exhausting, lifelong project of trying to build and defend a fixed, perfect, permanent version of me. The suffering was never in the changing thoughts or feelings themselves, it was in our desperate grabbing, our clinging to them as me and mine.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. What would actually change for you, maybe even today, if you stopped taking every thought, every mood, every sensation so personally? What if, instead of seeing them as the absolute definition of who you are, you just saw them as weather patterns passing through the vast open sky of your awareness? Just something to think about.